Oh, you're also doing it to YouTube. Oh man, that's pain. Yeah, that's just pain.
But people who are, it's not like, okay, if you're watching, hanging out in chat right now, that works. It's just if you're watching live on YouTube and Twitch. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Nope. How'd you fix it the other day? You could, however, add yourself to VOD Ninja and use the audio from that to loop back around. Yeah, add yourself into VOD Ninja, but not for the video, but just for take the video, put the video somewhere off screen or something, and just take the audio from it, or add it as an audio source. It would work without the camera. Like you can start VOD Ninja with audio only. Yep. Doing it live.
Ooh, double audio.
Should on your command center bit, whatever it's called, director seat. There definitely is one. There's... Tomato says, "Welcome to behind the scenes." Just translate.
And see if this somehow... Okay, I've got double audio. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, twice.
Uh-huh.
Back. Okay, that works. So I'm just going to be very laggy. This is unbelievable. I can't... All right, but this way nobody on Discord can hear me now. So...
Wait, we can hear you on Discord. Oh, you're...
No, chat.
Which one do I mute?
All right, anybody who
VOD
is on
Ninja.
Discord is going to have to... Oh, you're right. Okay, so I am going to have to mute myself. This is so complicated. Because I hear myself twice.
If we mute VOD Ninja, we can hear you fine single through Discord.
Yeah. I'll just have two sets of audio
okay.
in the recording.
I see.
And I have to hear myself twice the whole time. Okay.
This is great. It's perfect.
I'm super happy with this. All right.
Good luck remembering how to do this next time.
I hate technology. I hate computers. I do. God. It's so painful. Okay.
Well,
hey.
at least the audio for us chatting with you will be in sync.
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
Apologies, Mrs. Tomato, who's gonna have to edit this. Sorry for all the trouble. All right. So, folks, welcome. This is episode 90 of the Launch Sequence podcast. We just dealt with about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes or so of problems, and we found a little workaround here. I'm hearing myself twice, so I might sound kind of weird when I trip over my words. But I've got two guests here today, Tree0311 and Nazeris. Both of whom do some Star Citizen content, make stuff on YouTube. I've seen on the Captain's Table with Astropub, and I wanted to get in here to talk a little bit about Star Citizen, and we got a nice little roadmap update this week. So, figured we would all jump in, talk about what's coming up in 319, what's kind of looking like the deal for the rest of the year in Star Citizen, and how we're feeling about things currently. Thanks for joining me, folks. How you doing today?
It's morning and I'm a morning person. It's morning and I'm a night person. My coffee's almost gone and I haven't been up for like an hour.
I hate to ask, the screen that I'm watching right now is your video screen, whatever you're sharing. I don't know if that's what you meant to be sharing, but it's not.
Yes, no, I can change that. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'm doing great. I entertained by the technical difficulties. Totally sympathize because I literally have to go through this sort of process almost every single time, and thankfully I have Nazeris to help me, and you're doing it by yourself, so hats off to you.
Well, my wife is here and she helps me a lot with this stuff and is my go-to venting source for all these things. So she's it's me alone in front of the camera.
To Mrs. Tomato.
Yeah, but she's definitely that hardcore tech support behind the camera, at least mental support, if anything. But thank you both for joining me. We have a very interesting situation on our hands with Star Citizen this year, with updates just coming into the year was weird with 3.18. Before we get started, I'm going to ask you about kind of how you felt about all this, but I first would love for you guys to both kind of tell everybody where you come from, what you do, why you're both on the show here together. Give them the spiel and let them know where they can find your stuff.
You want to go first?
Yeah. So I'm Tree0311, Tree0311, and I am I guess, baby, new content creator. I do this part-time for fun as a hobby to raise money for charity. But Nazeris and I, it was Nazeris' idea almost this time last year. It's almost been a year to start a podcast together, just because we're both really interested in doing deep dives into the development of different aspects of Star Citizen, and going back and looking all the documentation, all the sources, and trying to get a more holistic picture of, okay, how is this being developed? What is it going to be? How has CIG gone about it? And so that's sort of our thing. That's where we got started. But we also like looking at the development week to week. Kind of like how you do. Looking at the reports, the roadmap updates. We use Shiny Tracker. If you haven't used that tool, everybody go look up shinytracker.app. That's our thing. And then Nazeris gracefully let me take over production of the Pathfinders podcast, which is gets uploaded to my YouTube. We broadcast it live on my Twitch. Everything's Tree0311. Just so I could learn how to do this, because I wanted to learn. And he's like, okay, I'll help you. And he's been teaching me things, and I've been learning, and we've been getting better. And I started a second podcast with Atir Kel and Nightcob, who you've probably seen on Astropub if you watch his stuff. And that's Armchair Admirals and Generals. That also gets uploaded to my YouTube. But yeah, that's the bulk of it. I just made my first short form video last month, and that did really well, far better than I thought I was going to. And I have a even greater appreciation now of what you do, Space Tomato, because oh my gosh, yeah, you and what your wife does, because that is hard work. Oh man,
it's I definitely say the longer form stuff makes things easier. So you can just talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's hard to like whittle it down and figure out what's important to say.
It's funny because there's people who would say the exact opposite. They can't stand being on the stream, but they can make 20, not 20, but 7 15-minute videos a week. It's like, how do you live?
I'm impressed by that, honestly.
Absolutely. I could stream probably most of the time and be fine, but you want me to edit down. If you want me to spend 5 hours to make a 15-minute video, my brain will shut off.
It's fun, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Nazeris, what about you?
Hi, I'm the other half of the Pathfinders podcast. I started YouTube way back in 2017 or something. And my hope was to be professional by the end of the year. That did not happen, because that never happens. That's not how you YouTube.
It takes forever.
Long story short, I now have a greater appreciation for what I'm doing. However, I was informed by some other Star Citizen content creators and by my own research that I should restart YouTube about a month ago. So I now have a new channel called the Nova Forge. That has actually been going really well. So well that I'm actually even back on Twitch somehow. I don't know if that is a good barometer of how well YouTube's going. But we're almost at, 60... I think we're at 60 subscribers just about in a month. Like, that's from 0 to 60 in a month. And, like, it's going really well. And then the engagement on Twitch is also doing really well. So what I cover specifically is news, tutorials, and I guess we've been doing a lot of gameplay on Twitch so far. And I'm also building out a Argo ship using 3D software. So that's been one of the more fun things we've been doing on stream. Called the Argo Bulk.
Like,
and
you're designing
also...
it in CAD?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. And also, like, I wanted to give, like, a little background on what exactly happened for the Pathfinders podcast when we started it. I was basically at work. I'm like, wow, I really wish I had someone to, like, make a video with or a stream with, but, like, was ready to go into the deeper things of Star Citizen. So I'm on my phone in the Astropub's Discord. I'm like, well, who's talking, like, deeper in conversation? And Tree's in there, like, trying to, like, nerd correct people and saying, no, it's this 5-year-old post that was, like, an addendum of this 20-year-old post. I'm like, hey, Tree, you want to do a podcast? He's like, yeah, I would.
Know how
so
that
was
works.
the start of
Well,
and so, like...
You know, Space Mo, you do, with your videos, you do a really good job of painting things in context, you know, especially historically. And we, our point of view with the Pathfinders podcast is very similar in that we're basically just talking people through kind of what, you know, you do on things. But as we're doing it, we just bring up, okay, here's this source, here's this source, here's this source. When this gets uploaded to YouTube, here's a link to all the citations, all the sources. If you want to go back and read it yourself, by all means. But this is the information you could find, you know, we could find. Here's our objective presentation of it. And then at the end, here's our subjective interpretation of what all this means.
It's a great style, too, of doing things, because it's so much stuff that it's easy to forget what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh,
a great example was episode 1, and I was unprepared for what Tree was about to do. Episode 1, Tree comes in with a flippin' mile-long spreadsheet of every change in the size of star system between the known history, the star map, and what else was it? The wiki page, the fan wiki.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just was this massive spreadsheet, and we went through it and kind of theorized and things like that. But some of the, like, star systems grew from really small to huge. Some of them just got bigger, some got slightly smaller. Like, and no one's been documenting this for, like, the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, somebody started documenting it, and then they stopped. But we have this just massive disparity between the star map and SE.tools?
Because you get, like, these small changes that happen and affect almost nothing, but you're tracking it for no reason. I get not sticking with that for very long. So you guys are very much doing the same, like, I mean, as you've said, doing a lot of the same kind of content that I find really interesting, looking at sort of not just what's happening in the game, but the context that leads to it. And that's why I think this is going to be a really good talk. So let's go ahead and just dive straight into 318 first and talk about what we expected, how it's kind of gone over the course of the patch, going from Evocati to PTU to still PTU. Ooh. And just how you think it's going to lead into 319. Give me your thoughts.
That's just why you start.
All right. I'm loving 319. I cringe every time somebody asks me to load live up right now. I absolutely
hard.
love 319.
It's hard to go back.
It is, like, the performance, like, just the base performance of 318 is so good. Like, ignoring the overhead of when people start doing weird stuff or they try and do a Zemo threat or whatever. Like, base performance is really solid. Like, 60 FPS decently in Orison is really, really nice. I don't know exactly my expectation when they said, yeah, 3.18 is going to be out like Q3 2022. I don't know what I was thinking. I can't recall having feelings about it. And I've been saying this, I don't know how many times I've said this on multiple different platforms. I would be fine if they always run a PTU and always run alive. I have no problem with long PTU cycles or long patch cycles. I couldn't care less when the next update to live goes out because I'm living on PTU. It doesn't matter. Yes, we get patched every day. This is game development. Welcome.
Yeah.
I have recently found out that I'm like addicted to potential. So I'm like on top of like several different early access stuff, and when something is not done, I like it more. So living in a constantly updating PTU is nice, really nice for me.
So when you finally get the game,
a very small minority.
I know.
Are you
this
gonna
is way
too
polished for me?
Yeah, you're gonna find the released game, and it comes out, and everybody's like, "Star Citizen's here," and you're like, "It's not being worked on."
Where's the
anymore."
next one? Yeah. But like they've said, like as long as there's money coming into the game, they will keep developing it. So there's always going to be potential there. Like it's an MMO, just like World of Warcraft. There's still making expansions to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the only difference between Star Citizen and World of Warcraft is Star Citizen has the update model instead of the expansion model. So instead of having to like spend $60 on an expansion every 6 months, it's hey, we have a really shiny ship for you to buy.
Yeah. So you think having 318, or you think 318 should be always in PTU, or you think it should have stayed in PTU while we kept going live? Like, what exactly do you mean when you say you want to always have PTU and live going?
I think they should have whatever's in PTU. They should be able to segment up their code. And then whatever is functional and 60 to 90% bug free, take that code, put it live. Keep all the bug stuff in PTU. And then add more stuff to the PTU and basically polish what you have there. And then drop the bug free or bug less problematic stuff into live.
Okay.
So you're always testing new stuff and you're always adding to PTU. And that's like your frontline players. But for the casual and people who just want to enjoy Star Citizen, get their experience. Let them enjoy the game. The people who aren't here for game development, who aren't here for the magic of making Star Citizen, because there's a lot of them. Like it's not like a shameful thing to just be here to want to play the game. Like people work horrible hours and I just want to sit down and play a game at the end of the day. Give them a good experience. Let them enjoy live as much as I enjoyed PTU.
It's actually just working more hours, honestly. You log in and you're just going to your second job, to be honest.
That's very much
people enjoy that.
With the commute and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you'd like to see then if we get to May, and we're going to talk about this later on in the episode, but we get to May and they release 319 to... No, I'm sorry. This would be like if they were to put 319 into the PTU like next month and then just have it run PTU for the next 2 months until it goes live in May.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much we're going to talk, like, you want to touch it now, but like 319 is only 318.5.
We'll get to that.
We'll just call it 318. Okay, we'll get to it.
We will get to that. But it's an interesting take, and I like it. Like, I agree with you. It'd be great if we just had the PTU always available for people to test the stuff that's kind of like, yeah, it's not stable enough to go live. It's sitting in wave 2 or wave 3 for a long time. Just let it keep going. Just keep the live servers going and let people try out that. I think Satisfactory kind of does that. And they do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah. Well, they do end their
money.
Experimental when the patch comes out.
Okay, gotcha. But it's still the money,
It does
right?
make me wonder how much more it would cost to host, and how because like we've seen performance issues on the server side when the things are in PTU, things are in open PTU, and you've got the open PTU, and then you have live, and it's you don't know if it's just random or if there's a correlation between trying to host two different branches of the game up on AWS at the same time, and
Yeah.
I think that's the hard
I mean,
part is
there's a-
knowing
I
if
think
that's
it's easy
what it's struggling.
not explanation, but a easy way to get around that is like I don't know if anyone's done the math for subscriber money. There's no way they're spending however millions of dollars a month they get from subscribers for stuff that we get. Like I'm sure there's like a savings account for like building the ever constant that they used from subscribers. Like I totally believe that, but subscribers is wave 2, right? So like it's subscribers, concierge, like
Wave 1.
It's wave 1.
wave 1?
Yeah.
Right, wave
I think
1.
that's why I'm
so,
Wave 1.
So like lean on your subscribers, lean on like, hey, use the PTU cycle normally during a normal patch. But when it's like out of that normal patch cycle, shrink it back down to wave 1.
Okay.
So your subscribers are paying for the servers.
So that's different. I was thinking like if it went to open PTU and stayed open the whole time, that'd be huge compared to if it was just wave 1 running the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, like I hate monetizing. The thought of just monetizing your frontline workers, but
They're already doing it.
A little late.
yeah, but like so it'd be open to Evocati, like the people who are tried and true and tested as the people good at testing the game. And then wave 1 to, monetize the players to actually keep the servers up and running. Like majority wise, wave 2 and open don't really want to play PTU. They want to play the new shinies. So it makes sense, at least to me, to once you have dropped the whatever chunk of data you're doing to live, a lot of that traffic's going to die off anyway. And then if they want to keep playing PTU, subscribe. Ta-da!
Honestly, I'm sure there are plenty of things that I'm not able to even imagine that would make it more difficult, but I would love if they could do that. That would have helped a lot last year. Tree, how are you feeling about the beginning of the year, about 3.18, where we are?
The 3.18 patch cycle has definitely been painful, and especially with how closely Nazeris and I follow development. It's been dragging it on. Not dragging it on. I hate to say it that way, but how long it's taken has been painful, and it's. But I get why they're doing what they're doing, because with PES, you have to test things at every scale. You can't have it completely collapse with the next level of stress tests. So they have to make sure things are a certain level of stable before you move it up, far more so than a regular patch.
Right.
But now that it's really in the past couple of weeks, when it was when it was wave 1 in December, it was really bad for me. I was having lots of crashes and stuff like that. The stability was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But since the first couple of patches of January, it's been really good for me. I have had I don't get to play as much as I'd like, but the stability has been a lot better. And I know they've made a lot of optimizations to I guess what you'd call the street sweepers in the background, managing entity counts. But I think another part of the really huge thing for me is I have a 12th gen Intel CPU, and there has been a pretty long-standing issue over a year and some change now with a lot of people with 12th and 13th gens with the performance and efficiency cores, and Star Citizen treating them the same, and it causing lots of stuttering, and it was a big pain to get it to work around it, and some people the workarounds didn't even work. And for me, they have since made fixes, and I don't have to use the workarounds anymore. I'm getting the use of my 12th gen exactly how I want it, and my performance is night and day better. Really what I should be getting with a 3090 and a 12900K, it's just super smooth. There's no choppiness. My frames are much more uniform in areas, and so that it's been having that has been a really nice experience. I still see a lot of the weird bugs, but from a server connection point of view, my stability has been, it in my experience, and that's not applicable to everybody. It's been, it feels like nearly live. I have better stability now than I do with 317, and with like the lifetime of 317 was not good for me stability wise, and we're not even live yet, and it's feeling pretty good.
I upgraded my computer in between patches, and I was thinking 318's running really smooth, mostly because of the computer upgrade. But if I do take my upgraded system back and play live, my performance is worse. So I'm right there with you. PTU, it's not
worse.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon for the PTU to run better, so I'm not putting too much emphasis on it. But like, I'm excited to see if it continues. When 318 goes live, if it actually is noticeably better than 317.
And even with all the debug code running in the background, God bless Sylvan CIG, and all the work he's done on Gen 12. Yeah. But it's got all this debug code and things running in the background, and it's still doing really well. And they've done optimizations, or can continue to do optimizations. Once it's live, the debug code will be out, largely. And so I'm really stoked for that, because you've talked about this many times. The being limited on FPS and having to suffer through that. And I've always had a very beastly system, and even with the beastly system, it didn't matter. And now it's this Star Citizen, on an FPS, level is far more playable, and I don't have to go through all these hoops just to be able to have it be playable or more so playable. It's, just playable natively, and
it's a lot better.
Now, if they can just get the rest of the PES related services so when you get a 30K crash, it is actually, you load back in, right back where you were. That's
I mean, I can't wait for the beautiful server meshing future when you have a 30K and it's not a 30K because nobody notices the server's still up. I can't wait for that.
Technically is a 30K, but you never see it.
Right. Yeah. Just automatically on the next one.
Well, and even with because it happens, if you're able to get back into your server, it's supposed to save where you are at this point. Now it's not just the heartbeat system, and it'll pick up your last save when you landed at a station, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
And that's what there's a login service, and that's what I don't know where they are with that. I know that was one of the ones that they said wasn't going to be with the initial release of 318, but maybe it is since it's been so long. But I think that even that will be a huge huge quality of life change for people who I was already en route from Microtech to Hurston with a ship full of cargo, or you and your friends are on your ship, you're all kitted out to go do whatever you want, you have things in your storage, and it crashes, but then you just load back up and you're still in transit, and you just spool your quantum drive back up and you're ready to go. That's a huge quality of life thing. Everybody's just rage quit and be like, what, I'm done, because you put all that work into your commute, and now your car breaks down on the side of the road. And
all right, so
I just hope we have the picking which server you go back into by the end of the year, because there's like with PES, and I've done this, like technically you can homestead. The problem ends up when you log out, the chances of logging back into the server you logged out of are next to none.
Yep.
So I made a little lean-to, me and Smithy Joe Bob, but I also had like a full C2 of vehicles just sprawled out on Daymar, in this little like area. I was gonna live there, and the big test came when I bed logged in the Aurora, and I logged back in. It's all gone. But it wasn't because they were cleaned up, as far as I know. It's because the server changed.
Yeah.
Getting back into your persistent server is really hard right now.
Yeah.
I actually haven't. I've been in situations where I had to try very hard not to get back into the same server. because we were glitched and we were
Mm.
trying to find a different server and we kept loading to the same one over and over. And I was like, this would be great
No,
if
this
we
one-
wanted this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one of those things. But guys, I want to looking at the recent roadmap roundup, knowing what we know of
Mhm.
318 and how it's been going, I would like to hear what you guys think is going to be the overall roadmap for updates this year. Like, what month do you think we might get what update? Where do you think we'll be at the end of the year?
318, it's definitely going to be, we've got 18 more days in this month. So if it makes it to live at the end of this month, beginning of this month, I think it's probably pretty on track. I know they were talking about 319 before Invictus Launch Week, which is third week of May. So that would give us essentially 8 to 10 weeks of time for them to get 319 out. So that's a pretty short turnaround, but at the same time, if it's all built on 318, that's all well and good. I think it's the question that is on my mind is if these features and things were meant for the 319 code branch, whatever that entails, how divergent is that from the 318 code branch? And I've talked about this in my Discord, Nazeris and I have talked about it. I've been saying that I hope that that 319 is this way, and I was hoping that they would do it this way from the beginning. I'm a bit concerned that they're just now announcing that. I think that they've probably had this in the works for a while on their end. But the question, remains on my mind is, okay, if these features were made for 319, what was the major difference between 319 and 318 that warranted its own dev branch? And what sort of are they going to have major challenges incorporating features into what is now 319 if they're doing it on top of 318? And we'll probably still get locations and missions and things like that, but I think that this feature wise it might be a bit limited because of what they're doing. If they're not incorporating it onto a new code branch that apparently was going to have things different in it that required a new code branch. So we'll see how it goes. These next few roadmap updates will be interesting as they add more things. There's the other thing to think about though is they've been working on features and locations and missions and other stuff for 319 for a really long time. They've had a lot of stuff that has been in development for, nearing a year now, because the 318 code dev branch, 318 has been in the main dev branch for so long. And so there's a lot of stuff that has been, just, not to say waiting, but continually developed and worked on for quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see what gets thrown in there, because of, if you go back and look at the progress tracker and you're like, oh man, this sprint has been going for a while. They worked on this for quite a while. The question is, and I think the main reason that I wanted them to build 319 on 318 in the first place was when you have more unique code branches, it requires more QA work and more time, time in the oven to get things to bake. And my hope is that by limiting, not doing a 3.2, doing a patch every quarter, limiting the number of patches between 318 and 4.0 would make it easier to get 4.0 out, to get to that dev branch that is server meshing.
Well,
And just by adding things.
What do you think is the path there? So, like, what do you think will happen after 319 this year?
Well, so my theory last year was that it was going to be 318 PES, 319 Quantum or aspects of Quantum, enough to make a significant change, and then 4.0 server meshing. Well, now I don't think Quantum is really coming with 319, because even though Quantum is largely a backend, a feature and subset of features, it still has to tie into the main dev branch, just like with PES. And so there are, I don't think that they can integrate that without making a separate code branch. So that means I think that we're probably going to get a 3.20, 3.20. And if they're going to do that, how quickly can they turn that around after 3.19 before a 4.0 in order to reach their goal of a 4.0 in player hands? That's
which means Evo COD.
Pretty, Evo. Yeah, Evo, and that's the thing, is a lot of people read that in the letter from the chairman with a little bit of bias from how it was worded in the previous letter from the chairman, where they said to live by the end of the year for 3.18 or whatever. And this one they said just in player hands at some point in Q4. And it's like, okay, they left it more open-ended by a long shot. They gave themselves a much bigger target to hit. But even so, if you're trying to get in a 3.19 and a 3.2 or 3.20, with Quantum in there at some point, that's it. It makes that's another dev branch and more QA resources that you need in order to get a patch out that aren't going to be able to work on, the 4.0 dev branch when or could push back, QA work on that. And that's my only concern is they have this holistic vision of 4.0 with PES, with Quantum or large subsets of Quantum and static server meshing, all in the 4.0 dev branch. And that's to stabilize 3.18 and get Quantum in to where it's meaningful ahead of server meshing this year. That's a big ask. And
best of luck to you on that Quantum prediction.
Mm-hmm.
I am, every time I even hear that word, I'm just going to tell myself, it's 2 years from now. I just don't, my confidence in Quantum bleeds every month. Every time I see that there's not something else they're saying about it, every time I notice it's not in the monthly report, it's
that's
the
weird thing about
game.
the monthly reports that Nazeris and I have noticed is the systemic services and tools and network teams are never mentioned within the monthly reports within their own segment. They'll get mentioned by work with other teams, but that work on server meshing, work on PES, work on Quantum does not get talked about in the monthly reports, and it irks me to no end.
Finally, server meshing did this week.
Yeah, but it was mentioned by other teams, ancillary teams, that it wasn't, there's never been a network team section on the monthly report.
It was mentioned by online services. I think that's mainly who's working on it, Turbulent in Montreal.
No, so online services they're the ones that manage what's on the platform, what we experience, what we connect with. That's what online services does. Yeah, the network team is working on the servers. They're working on the actual network code in the back end. They're the ones that have been developing PES, but the Shiny Tracker still shows that. And the Shiny Tracker shows that they have had networking devs working on Quantum, and they've had other devs working on all the. If you go back to the Quantum video that Tony Z did back in May of 2021, he let out a pretty decent roadmap ahead. The only issue is that roadmap got put on hold because iCache didn't work. There's a quote in there that I've shared a million times, and it's basically, he said, with iCache largely done, we've been able to shift some resources over to working on this. And it's like, oof size large.
Yep.
Because that didn't happen because iCache didn't work, and they had to pivot and develop PES in a year and a half.
Yeah. Nazeris, what do you think is going to happen after 3.19 this year?
After 3.19, so after the May update?
Yeah. How do you think this year is going to balance out?
So I really hate that they called 3.19 because it should have been called 3.18.5. There
4.1 or whatever. Yeah.
0.5 would be good. Like in the actual, we'll talk through the stuff that's coming in 3.19, and none of it's like function. Like all of it is stuff we already have expanded in some way. whether that be mission team or signage and hints, or mission team or art. Like none of it's like foundational stuff. And 319, the previous 319, the actual 319, the thing we were actually going to get Q1, Q2, whatever it was going to be, as far as like an actual patch, has a
barometer for what that looked like for longer now. The question is, if the roadmap, you get what's planned for the next patch when they just started telling us what's going to be in 319, and 318 is getting close to live. And so 319 releases in May for Invictus launch week, let's say. Will we get the roadmap for 3.20 at that time? Is that going to be ready at that time to show us? Are there plans going to be closer in 2 months and some change to where they can start talking about that? That's my question that I have, because I agree, Space Nerd, like if that of that particular dev branch just got kicked down the road a couple more months, but and relabeled, that could still be a very huge content patch based off of everybody gives CR a bunch of crap, and they're like, oh, his predictions. Like, well, it's not his predictions. He's just the mouthpiece for the teams. He asks, okay, what are you guys planning for this year? What do you think you can have released? What can we shoot for? And he gets reported that back to him, and then he says it to us, and so we all get to give him a hard time for his predictions being off. But it's not just his predictions; those are everybody's predictions within CIG.
Yeah,
and they keep on saying Bounty Hunter V2, and everybody's like, "Oh, quick, sweet Bounty Hunting gameplay." Bounty Hunter V2 isn't just Bounty Hunter gameplay. The Bounty Hunter V2 is representative of a crap ton of back-end AI services that are part of the quantum simulation, and that's why I'm like, okay, they were saying Bounty Hunter V2 by the end of the year, when they thought 318 was by the end of the year, and they thought they were going to have a 319 by the end of the year. Okay, now 319, that the dev branch that they thought it was going to be, isn't going to be ready in time for May for Invictus launch week, so it'll probably be the next patch, like you were talking about, Space Tomato. So that is what they're shooting for that aspect of the quantum simulation, possibly more. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Be content in 320. I'm just saying it will be whatever is already planned. They're not going to plan more, like they're not going to add content from what they were planning for 319 to 320, because they want to make sure that 320 is done and out the door, so focus can be on 4.0. Even though 4.0 is going to take 12 months or so.
Things, kind of like how 318 the development has gone on for a while, and they've added more things that weren't initially planned. I think there might be some low overhead things for 3.20 that were, hey, this wasn't originally planned for 319, 3.20, but now because everything has taken so much longer, this has gotten wrapped up. We can add this in, kind of like the racing. Racing is, that's really a big feature, actually. Mm-hmm. But the way
it's
works,
a whole career in the game that just like, ta-da,
bounce it in.
But the way it works, it isn't a one of those things where it requires a ton of overhead. For dev, they can add racing without it causing a bunch of QA nightmares, in PTU and such.
Yeah. So, looking at. Not gonna lie, I disagree with you guys a little bit about the outlook of the year. I'm actually, I guess, more optimistic about it. So
I'm optimistic.
This is me being optimistic. What do you mean?
No, I'm not saying you guys aren't optimistic. I'm saying I think I am more optimistic. So
there's with this change that they just talked about. Now it's going to take longer for us to get better information, and so I feel like 2 weeks ago, I had a clearer view of what my expectations were, and now they're more gray than they were before. I'm still, I'm optimistic. I think that we're going to have 4.0 before the end of the year, but not live. I think it'll be in Evo PTU in Q4.
I'm the opposite. I was confused and utterly lost up until I guess last night when I started looking at this roadmap roundup, and now I feel like I have a good idea of what the year's plan is. 318, I think it was like January. I was thinking it would end up being the March patch. I think it still makes sense for it to end up being the March patch. And to be honest, if we get it in the beginning of March, that would give us about 2 to 2.5 months before we would get 319, right? Being a patch that comes out for Invictus Week. And the way I see it, like you were saying, is those are probably the features that could go into 318 based on the code base, but don't require like big changes like cargo refactor or what was the other things that you were saying? Just vehicle tractor beams, bounty hunting.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff all sounds like the major stuff. So I could see
Resource management.
Right, that's a big one. So I always thought that those things might come in a 319 patch in July, but most likely would come in a 320 around October. What this update did for me is just confirm which one they're coming in. So I look at October as a big update with a lot of features because we know for a fact that 4.0 is not going to be ready live until March, at least next year. So they're going to need a big update for that 6-month period. And then basically we're just going to get the stuff that was ready before the July patch would have been, and any of the stuff that wouldn't have been just gets worked on more for November or October. But
I think it's a really good way too, because if all those things will have been cooking for a long time, and if we get a 319 in May, that gives them a long time to QA between that and an October 320 patch, as well as having a pretty decent PTU cycle for us. And if that's a new dev branch with maybe some quantum, but all these other things, but they have a good period of getting it fixed. If 4.0 is in whatever PTU in Q4, we're still playing a live of 320 through Q4 and into 2024. A live of 320 that's PES of however long to stabilize. All these features had all this room for testing. It would make for a lot better over the fourth quarter holiday experience than what we've had for so long. Every year we always get that fourth quarter patch and it's like, ugh. And you go on, But I get what you're saying, and I agree with that part. And I think that would the timeline for that would be really nice, especially if we're playing 3.20. It has all this new content and features. When CitizenCon comes along, and at CitizenCon they demo, hey, this is server meshing. It's in internal. We're planning to release it. It's in internal in October. It goes to Evo in November or December, and we start seeing bits and bobs of that. But you have that experience of like, oh, okay, well it's where 318 was at the same time last year, so it'll be in PTU, and I can start trying it out at the beginning of next year. But in the meantime, I've got a content-rich patch in 3.20 of things that are relatively stable because they've been in development for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really nice for players.
Similar, just in like different flavors. Because like I said, I don't think that 320 is going to be necessarily just like a nothing patch. I think it's going to have everything that they have being developed that is pre-server meshing. I just think they won't add to 320 from the point that they've already planned for 319.
Yeah, I'm just not as certain about what will be in 320 as I previously was. But I think that 320 will be a good content patch.
I think most of the major features that we see... Okay, I guess I had a catalog of features I expected for the mid-year patches before 4.0. Mm-hmm. Like resource management, bounty hunting,
I watched the video.
Cargo refactor. Like that stuff is what I expect to see in 320. Mm-hmm. And I think
we also haven't talked about the features that are coming over from Squadron this year that they've said are coming over from Squadron this year. The mobiGlas rework, I think the map was on there, and a couple other stuff that's been in. They definitely didn't mention for that. Over a year.
I wish they did. I looked for it.
Also, hacking's been in Squadron for a year now. So that could also come. I forget where it was said, but they said a good amount of features that are in Squadron are coming over to Star Citizen this year.
There's a lot of things that are nebulous because the things like you talked about, Space Marine, that have been in the monthly reports a lot. That are okay. They're getting a lot of work. They've been showing this out. They've been talking about it. And then there's other things where we know they're working on it. We just don't have a great idea of where along the pipeline they are and how much work on the Squadron 42 side they're going to need before they can get ported over. But there's still a lot of time between now and the end of the year where you could see substantial changes.
Well, let's talk about some of the changes that are coming in 319 that have been recently announced. So these are features that they know for pretty sure are going to be in 319 in May. These are not all of the features coming in the patch. There are ships we know that are going to be in that patch. It's a given. And there are a couple other things on the monthly report I think have a chance of being in there. But they've confirmed a few features this week. Any that specifically jump out to you guys?
I guess I have questions about the new player experience because they're reworking Lorville. Lorville 2.0 looks great. I have a question about that in that, okay, they're doing the skyline. How much does that impact the first person experience within moving around inside Lorville?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm waiting for more information on, because I like Lorville, I like how it works, but how much impact are we going to have on our experience walking around in it? And how much is going to get added to it, from that point of view versus the overhead flying.
I think they said they're not touching the first person levels of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that rework-esque kind of work on it done for building interiors, because it removes every piece of like cityscape that we've needed in favor of a building.
Yeah.
Like entire landing zones now can be in a single building, but like they're not going to be. But that's the potential of building interiors. So I think that whole shift in the actual game space in the landing zones is going to come.
Well, there's a couple couple complications surrounding that, because like you said, Lorville's getting a rework in 319.
Mm-hmm.
New player experience is coming in 319, but it's not going to be at Lorville. So it's like two
that was
different
my
kinds
question.
of
If you're redoing the new player experience at Area 18, and okay, I get that it's Area 18, the landing zone, but we know that ArtCore is going to eventually get a substantial rework, and by redoing the new player experience for Area 18 on ArtCore, is this one of those things where like, okay, we redid the new player experience, and we're focusing on Area 18 and Baijini Point first, and then they'll do the other landing zones. When they redo ArtCore, is that going to complicate what they just did for the new player experience? Are they going to have to go back and I get that they've been trying to make it so that they don't have tech debt and rework, but if they,
I think that's more, it's going to be a test bed for the new player experience, and that I do think they might, not that I want them to, but might bring it to other landing zones. Like, I completely support the idea of day one, you have not every landing zone open to you. You have this one or this one. And then after you can either say, no, I'm a veteran player, I'll opt out of this. But for most people, first day in, they won't know where that button is, so they'll just go to the new player landing zone. That's marked up in all these very handholdy signs and things. It's either going to be very handholdy, or it's going to be just slight enough to where those less mentally capable can't see it. So either, like, it's gotta be obvious. And this is not just like, the new player experience is not just more signs in the landing zone. It's also the hints. It's also the mobiGlas tutorial, tutorials like in the mobiGlas stuff to really tell the player how to play 30 minutes of the game. And just focusing on ArtCore gets them a framework to start, so they can see where it does well, where it doesn't. Just like rivers for Microtech, just like buildings and things. I think Lorville was the first city we got, right? Like, just like Yeah, just like that was for that. Like, we're starting with Hurston for cities, and then we'll add cities around. It gives them somewhere to start and see what works and what doesn't.
I wonder how much that's going to impact what we see as veteran players at Area 18.
Well, I think that I guess I hope what they're doing is building this new player experience with some of the other features they're working on in mind that we won't see. Like, in my opinion, the most important part of the new player experience should be FPS radar and scanning, and interaction.
Yeah.
Highlighting to people in the city where they can go, why they can go there, what they can do. Like, just give people an AR overlay on different things. And that's what I think of that they're doing in RCorp. Like, they're just kind of plugging stuff in, different types of props and things, so that players can easily get like contextual hints about that. But, you know, at the same time, like you said, the city's going to change. So can they do that in a way that those same things will transfer over one-to-one to whatever the new version is? And I think they would work at that, but it's telling that it's only going to be one city at first. That does mean that it's a bit heavier of a feature, and it's something that's not just as simple as slap a few signs on the paths.
Yeah, it's a very focused endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'd be actually really nice to get like some of the AR features, like to gamify the experience optionally, like specifically with like within landing zones, or even like if you show up at an outpost to try and like buy cargo, and you walk out of your ship and you're like, now which door is it? There's 50 of them here. So a way to say I'm trying to get to this place, and it actually has like a dashed line to the door of that like store or that outpost console or whatever. Like, we have AR markers to gamify the game, so gamify it through AR.
Yeah, and
like,
it could
give
be,
us the gamey HUD.
And they could do like little missions too, where they're like, go get your first set of space armor or something, and they show you how to get to the store. They give you a look at like, you can shop on the mannequins or you can shop on the screen. Just like teaching people how the game works is going to be really helpful. I hope it goes into depth.
Yeah, as good as community-made tutorials are, it is a very poor practice to rely on them to make your official tutorials. Even if your tutorials are crap, you at least should have them.
It's, yeah. And we've finally gotten to that point where they're just getting so many new players that they can't get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope, and I don't know if this will be the new player experience, but a new player thing, I think we were talking about this on the Astropub last time I was on. A really good new player experience thing would be a mission within a landing zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like a box mission or a letter mission or correspondence mission, where you do the entire mission like rigmarole, get the mission, go to the place, do the thing, and the entire experience of a mission, but you never leave the landing zone.
Yeah, I think they mentioned
don't currently
that.
have any.
I think they mentioned that in this last monthly report again. It might have been Orison or Area 18, but they mentioned that they were starting, I think it was the narrative team, is starting to look at missions inside of landing zones. Yeah, here it is.
And again, that will have like way higher potential with building interiors.
Yeah, they're looking
especially if they made it as part of the new player experience. Like, you have the option of doing these if you're the new player. If you're a new player or you're like you've done essentially what would have been a character reset, and you're starting off fresh and you pick your landing zone, and then I'm not a new player, so I don't want to do them. But then they pop up on your HUD when you wake up in your hab. Hey, this is so and so. We've got a few things that if you need some help getting started to do here. Take this mission, or contract whatever to take you over to the hospital or to take you to the shopping area, and you essentially get something in your inventory and you hand it to a person and they give you something cheap and easy in exchange in order to help get you started. Those sort of things would be really nice to have as options, especially if you want to redo them in the future. And for getting your base loadout to hop in your Aurora to go do some space missions to get you started with a multi-tool with a tractor beam attachment, that sort of thing.
So besides this new player experience, we also mentioned the Loreville rework. There's also new missions coming to the derelict reclaimer that we find on Microtech, and there are salvage missions coming in. So these are the first 4 or 5, I think, 4 confirmed features for 319. Were any of those other ones things that you guys thought were specifically worth mentioning?
The new mission at the Derelict is specifically marked up as a PvP mission with specific verbiage in it about NPCs. Like, it mentions both, which means that's going to be like it's combining NPCs and player interaction. And I think, again, this is another like testbed scenario where they're trying to see what happens. Like, can they get players and NPCs on the same side and on different sides working together-ish? I'm completely here for that. I really need some flavor in my bunker missions because they are quite old. So, like, we definitely, like, as much as I hate, like, Combat Citizen.
Whoops, sorry.
Like,
I was going to say, did Nazeris swear? He never swears.
Just auto-censoring. Just predicting him.
I understand the need for variety in combat. Like, currently, the biggest thing is either bounty hunting, which is fly somewhere, kill something, fly somewhere, kill something, fly something, kill something, or bunker missions, which is go down genocide, go down genocide, go down genocide. Like, it's basically all you have as far as like combat, and there's no variety. Like, sure, the bunker missions have like defend or attack variants of them, or holdout, I guess. But it's the same interaction every time. There's no I guess with Korea, technically there now is a bit of flavor in 318. But there's no... I've not gotten a chance to play it yet. I was
watching
about to
you play that video. It was with Morph and a whole bunch of other people, and yeah, that looked like just a wicked good time. It was
good time.
Really fun to watch.
I tried to get there twice. My ship decided to vomit me out in the middle of space both times. Just as I get to sell, and just like, no, you don't get to ride anymore.
Your ship knew that Korea wasn't safe, so they said no.
But it was like a Terrapin, which has armor, but...
What I'm interested about the Ghost Hollow mission, because it sounds, with the, fight for control of terminals, just like fighting for control of the Jumptown drug spewers. However that ends up working, it's interesting that we're fighting over control of terminals. Like, what will that terminal? Is that what they're calling a thing that puts out something you grab, or is it more like the terminals at Korea that you're using to hack your crime stat? What are you using?
Have you played
them for Star Marine to get money?
Game mode? Have you played the Star Marine game
Not
mode
in
where
a while.
Hack terminals?
I don't think so.
It's basically what other famous combat game is there that runs on the same premise? But basically,
Call
you
of
go
Duty?
to a point.
Don't they have a thing like that?
I have no idea.
I know Halo has territories, so.
But basically, you go to a point that has a static console, and you activate console, and you have to be within a certain radius to hold that console. Basically, a territory war. Whether somebody has to stay at the console or not, it depends on which version of stuff the game developers do. But generally, it's go to a point, hold that point, and the more points you have, the better your team's doing in a longer-term battle.
I don't understand how we're going to have just random terminals set up at a crashed, falling apart spaceship, but okay.
That's the lore team to find out.
Yep. Well, and then they talk about incorporating the comm array. Is that just you're hacking the comm array to make it so that way your actions aren't broadcast, or is there another aspect to that? You have to control the comm array and a terminal, or have the comm array turned on for the terminals to work. That was, including that, left me a little bit confused but intrigued.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is this is this PvPVE where are we going to be in a situation where you have NPCs who are not on either player side, like they're defending their home, and you have players, multiple groups fighting over against the a 3-access thing, or is it a sort of you're either lawful or unlawful type scenario like we've had before? That's what I'm curious about, because if it's Ghost Hollow, to me that the NPCs that inhabit it right now are unlawful. They're pirate types. But can you, as a, I can't remember now. But can you, as a player, be an unlawful and have them be friendly to you, where you would have a advantage? You've got more guns on your side. You're working together. They show up as friendly, kind of like bunker missions, or is it a absolute free for all between players and NPCs, and no one is friends other than the people in your team?
And this makes complete sense for why we could have really benefited from a reputation increase. Imagine if this was a mission they went in and they were like, oh, it's a 3-part mission, or 3-axis mission. It's all you're fighting against people fighting against Ninetales, but you have good Ninetales reputation. Suddenly it's a 2-part mission and these people are backing you up. That's what I want to see. Like,
having your reputation really matter, where if you have good rep with them, you show up and they're not shooting at you. They're shooting at the other guy. And you can waltz right in, and use them to help hold the terminal or whatever it is. And other players are looking at, maybe you and your crew do a little dress up beforehand to blend in. And the other people coming in don't know who's an NPC and who's a player. They just know that everybody is shooting at them. That would be really interesting. And I totally agree. That would be something that's really nice to see. Yeah. And that's why I'm really interested to see more about this mission type, because it has things meshed in together that really haven't been meshed in together all that much.
Yeah, I imagine we'll be seeing an ISC on this one specifically.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure it'll show up on the next monthly report. Because I hope it will. Are there any other, between the salvage missions or the what else is it? I guess the Lorville rework we kind of already touched on. Salvage missions, do you guys have anything there that interests you?
I think it's industrial missions.
Sorry?
I'm shocked that mining wasn't also in here, or is at least not in there yet, because in the monthly report they outlined exactly what a mining mission is, and the 3-4 different variants they have of it. I literally don't understand why it's not in there.
Actually, I think they outlined the salvage super specifically, and then they were like, oh, we'll do the same with mining. It did kind of feel like from the monthly report they weren't as far along with it. I don't know. It's kind of a big update to the existing gameplay. Maybe salvage is already ready to go with PES and they've got to do more work to make sure mining is going to work with the missions. I'm not sure, but that's probably going to be 320, right?
Yeah. What I'm, they talk about the derelicts around the Lagrange points, and right now there's a ton of them. There's a lot, and they're just out there. There's and they're free, and so this will kind of balance that out for the profitability of salvage. I wonder if they're going to balance out how many derelicts are out there and available, as well as include you can't just go up and salvage a derelict that's in comrade range. It's this derelict kind of like how in real life, where if you total your car and it goes to some sort of salvage shop, they own that salvage title now. Pardon me. Is that essentially what's going on? These salvage brokers, they own the rights to that wreck. They sell the rights to somebody to go salvage it. If you try to salvage a wreck at a Lagrange point without first buying those rights, is that you can do it, but is it unlawful? Are you technically stealing? Are you going to get a level 2, level 3 crimes 1, 2, 3 crime stat? That's what I'm looking forward to hearing more about. Because otherwise people will be like, no, why would I do that? I can just do it for free.
That's just yet another major thing that's probably going to tie into the ownership system that we don't know anything about. It's trading cargo and claiming a land claim or a mining claim or a salvage claim. All this is going to be super complicated. We haven't really seen much about that, but I'd be interested also in knowing how long after a ship blows up.
Tony Z's area of expertise, which is not something you see on the roadmap. Not roadmap, but the monthly reports.
Which I'm still
These are the randomly generated ones, but that this is part of the holistic system where eventually, if your ship gets damaged and instead of repairing it, you do an insurance claim, that should automatically generate one of these mission types for your derelict ship that you've left in space. But we're obviously not there yet. But I think the other one thing that is kind of nice about it though is it does is sort of frame our expectations for what this will look like going forward. So that way, when it does change and become more what's in line with where they're going with it, it's not as drastic for players. And like, well, wait a minute, how come I can't do this anymore? And it's like, no, this is sort of how it's supposed to be from the get-go.
My favorite thing about these missions is that they kind of noobify the salvage gameplay for people. Like any of the sandbox things that maybe a veteran would do, they would grab their ship, go out into space, and do whatever they want, right? You can't just tell a newcomer, oh yeah, there's salvage in the game. You just have to go get a salvage ship and then get a multi-tool and then find a derelict and then make sure you're protected and then turn it in. It's like now you can just be like, oh yeah, just look on your mission contract, and it'll walk them through it, be like a tutorial, teach them all the basics, and then they can go out and do it sandbox themselves. And I love that.
I think this is a great time for a rant. No, so back in 2018, I believe it was, CitizenCon, there was a roadmap laid out called Road to Release. The last panel on that roadmap was server meshing.
Yeah.
Nothing else between server meshing and beta as far as underlying foundational technology.
As long as we reach
There's nothing that it's just content.
As long as we reach past 4.20 before going to beta, I need to see that update, and then we're good.
Just because?
That's all I need. Yep. I mean, I know all the
jokes
be here all
are
week,
raining.
Folks. All the jokes are raining that we will see 4. So and so, but
I mean, we didn't get the 6-branch version, so
the other thing with the salvage contracts is, if you're a new player and your second ship is a vulture, it allows you to probably learn that pretty easily, go find derelicts pretty easily, and allows you to salvage in a monitored zone near a space station where you have a higher degree of safety. But then if you have your reclaimer and you have the whole salvage crew, you can go out and look for maybe potentially larger, more valuable derelicts, in an asteroid belt here or there.
We also need larger, more valuable derelicts in the game. Like
yeah.
Our ship size is actually kind of limited for reclaimer viability.
Mm-hmm.
Starfarers is the bottom of the list. You want bigger ships.
It would be nice if that there was some of the bigger, more profitable ones for a reclaimer are maybe not necessarily, or in smaller numbers aren't the ones of the Lagrange points. Those are the more the beginner ones. And then, but if you want the 890 or the Hammerhead or a derelict reclaimer or something like that, for the most part, you're only going to find those in the an asteroid belt, or someplace that isn't one of where all these little contracts are.
That's the idea behind Quantum, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's the quantum integration where the wrecks are.
Better ones will be in places where people aren't.
Mm-hmm.
An 890 is going to have NPCs that have 890s will have peculiar things they do because they're doing it not necessarily for point A to point B travel, but touring. So they'll be orbiting around Cellin or something, just they're absorbing the views. So you'll have just this random off the beaten path mission, hey, there's a wreck over here and it's not within our wheelhouse. You take it, pay us. But also when you get to the Hammerhead or Idris is that's, hey, a conflict went on between Crusader and Ninetales, and they said we could have or they sold us the salvage rights to it to clean up their mess, and I have this contract that if you want it, pay us an exorbitant amount of money because there's a lot of money to be made. And that even mirroring that on the mining side, because both versions are finite eventually. Mining and salvage are both going to be finite. the getting
well,
the
salvage. I
contract-
mean, there'll be, the how many derelicts are out there will always be somewhat limited but they will be continually generated as
right.
ships are crashed and
technically
blown up.
finite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If no one has been attacked in the Terra system in a very long time and no one has crashed their ship, there'll be a very limited number of salvage in Terra.
My
for
point is
example.
they both lead back into a before the mission is generated exploration. You need to know about it first. So that's where you can either sell, or have a mission for finding either ore deposits or wrecks. So you can find a wreck with your exploration ship, whether you're on a mission or not, and then take that data and either give it to your salvage department or sell it back to the game to generate a mission to go salvage. Like it's all coming together.
It's a circle of exploration, and you can the hope is you can inject yourself at any step. You could start by just finding the location and then selling it, or you can only receive the data and then go and salvage it, or you can only receive the salvage materials and go sell it. It's like the dream is that like there's just going to be this overall sequence that goes on in Star Citizen that you could take part in, but who knows?
Chris knows.
Does he?
Chris, maybe 3 of the directors.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously they've got like their ideas and expectations, but things are changing every year, as we can see. They didn't want to have to do this with 318. They didn't want to have to make certain changes for PDS.
The more they change, the more they stay. Like, sure, it's taking a lot longer to get there, and the original idea didn't have fully realized planets, but the base Star Citizen game hasn't changed as much as we've gotten higher fidelity, bigger planets. Like, was it Privateer or Freelance or whatever game it was, like 10.0 is still the kind of thing they're trying to do. They're trying to make a traditional space citizen person game, whether that be Outlaw or Citizen, just blown up to as much money as they've been given. So it like the base idea has always been there, to have like your traditional like space combat, space mining, space hauling, like kind of gameplay. Like that's like your core gameplay, and just to do that in a way that is bigger and more ambitious than anyone has before.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it, and I think there are a couple things I see that make me a little nervous about it, like the player skill system and stuff, but for the most part, it feels like they've gotten their like pillar things that they wanted to do. It's about your own player skill, it's about the decisions you make and the consequences for them, it's about sandbox environment, it's about space. Like, they can change kind of the little things, but like you said, they've stuck pretty true to that central theme. And it's exciting to see, because it's getting really exciting.
Who brought the skill thing up in a meeting, and who said that was like a great idea? Like,
who played what game?
It's almost irrelevant, huh?
Who played a game and then came into a meeting the next day, and they were like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's almost irrelevant. Like, how they said it's going to work is like it might as well be like a reputation thing. Like, the more like it will work the same way as if you do 50 Kovlex missions, you get another Kovlex mission to do in the roster. Like, you just like
it's
a little higher
really
reputation.
there for them to add even more value to your character and to avoid death. Because if they tie that into regeneration, they tie that into what Death of a Spaceman actually is now. That they're just giving more value added to you taking care of your character, taking care of having object permanence for yourself. And as much as I don't know how much I like the idea of the skill system, I get why they're doing it, because they needed more for it.
Wrong word for it too, because it's not, it's attributes, it's barely skills. Like, it's skills in like the Morrowind sense of skills, but not in the like more recent kind of video games kind of skills. It's not a new power up. You can't like for Jedi Fallen Order, you don't get to do a new move because you just learned a skill. It's you've run, 300 kilometers, so we're gonna give you 2 seconds of stamina. Like it's really irrelevant stuff, but it's something.
Which I'm also like, okay, but what if I get cybernetic legs? Does that affect my stamina? And if so,
you need your brain pathways to grow, so you can't have this.
I just it is.
Or like
you smell like
they can also
hydraulic
use the
fluid.
hydration and saturation thing. Like you consume 1% less.
And that's the thing.
and-
You named reputation. We already know about, finding weapons or armor. We know there are things like learning the languages in the game and being able to use those without any sort of in-game intervention. Like we've got all these
they
different
better
kinds
not.
of things. Yeah, but this is another system on top of that. So
Mhm.
now it's another way or another method of progression that has to be thought about, that has to be developed and supported and bug tested. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how many different systems can we have to do that? So I get
Yeah.
why they bring
Yeah.
importance to the character, but makes me nervous.
I wish they
Yeah.
had framed it in the we want to incorporate this because we need to have more value added to your character maintenance, keeping them alive. Not just backspacing. I wish they had framed it in that conversation, and I think Jared's expression when that got dropped, it hints at it. Oh great, now
Especially
I have to
when it was
manage
like, oh yeah,
expectations
Kristen, we're
with
gonna have
this
skills
too.
now. Just like
Yeah.
I felt his pain. I felt Jared's pain that day.
Yeah, they know what they're talking about. They know why they're doing it. They did not communicate that.
It was very
that's
casual.
Oh god, and that was the
It
absolute
should
wrong
have
way
been
to
its
go
own
about it.
panel. Like they just
Yeah.
Yeah,
they just
it
mentioned
should
a couple
like
sentences.
it should have been like a Jared run video letter from the chairman. That
Mhm.
way they could talk about whatever the heck they wanted. Then Jared could go to, I think, what is it, Jason is the editor currently? I don't remember who the editor is currently. And just like cut everything we haven't talked about yet out.
Yeah.
Just cut it all out.
It was an interesting
And save the
introduction.
nice bits.
I'm guessing they'll
Yeah.
talk more about it this year as they get closer, but that's
I don't think it's going to be talked about this year because I don't think it's anywhere within like maybe 5.0.
they put it on the monthly report.
I don't think the skills.
Yeah, they mentioned it on February monthly report. It's their first time, or the January
they
one. Yeah, they just put it out this week. I thought was interesting.
Oh.
It surprised me.
Yeah, I didn't think that they were that close to it getting to work on it either. And
I was not
when I-
expecting it.
no, me neither.
It's in the character features section though. They just talk about stamina skill real quick.
Yeah. Man, I
They
don't
snuck
know.
it in there.
Yeah, but that's honestly outside the conversation of today, which is mainly about 319 and those features, and I feel like we did a pretty good job of reviewing
Tangent.
them. I mean, it's a good tangent. That's a feature that we need to keep going back to, and as we learn more.
Mhm.
But this has been a pretty decent review of 319, at least what we know of it so far. We'll get more and more throughout the months. But Tree, Nazeris, thank you both so much for joining me for this talk. I'd
Thanks for
like to
inviting
give
me.
you a chance one more
Yeah, thanks
time.
for having us.
Of course. I'd like to give you a chance one more time to let everybody know where they could find your content before we sign off.
I'm
Alright.
I'm Tree0311. Well, it's Tree0311. Don't use an O, use a 0. And it's just at Tree0311 on YouTube and Twitch.tv Tree0311. And that's where you can find the Pathfinders podcast and Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast. And hopefully soon more short form videos. And then my Discord links are also in there. So if you want to come hang out and join the discussion, by all means.
Yep. Likewise, I'm also on Twitch and YouTube, both the Nova Forge at the Nova Forge on YouTube, and then the Nova Forge also on Twitch. I do streaming on both currently, and then I do tutorials and informational videos on YouTube. The current focus for the tutorials on new players, so I currently have up a 1-minute tutorial for getting leadership through the Atlantic Zone, and then we'll be starting to get through menus and then piloting out leadership through the Atlantic Zone in a couple weeks. And, yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you both again for joining me today. This has been episode 90 of the Launch Podcast. We have a couple of good episodes coming up in the next few weeks, but this is a really good one. And honestly, the kind of, I guess, I'm going to take a page out of the edges of the road to 100. So, don't don't quote me on it. We might do this for a couple of years, but we are on the road.
Episode 90.1.
Yeah, that's actually something we didn't really get to that time. I just want to say thanks for everything.
5 more hours.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And for everybody else, thank you so much for watching, for being here for the live episode. If you weren't, please feel free to check it out over on YouTube. We're posting this live on Monday. We'll also be going out on our audio platforms. So if you are looking at an audio podcast and listening to that, we'll be there as well. Other than that, though, I will see you in the next episode next week. The outro music at the end, everybody was saying went too loud. There's something wrong with. Hold on, let me see what actually. That's why. Yeah, see, it was sending the music through another output. It's sending all